Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk about presentation skills, leadership, communication challenges, diversity, many things. Before I get to my very exciting guest today, I'd like to invite you to see where your presentation skills are strong and where perhaps and where they might not be by taking our free 4-minute assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where in 4 minutes, you can see where your presentation skills are strong and where perhaps a little bit of support could get you the results you need and the recognition that you deserve. Plus which, if you score highly enough, you can get a free assessment results call with me where I can give you advice and help you do it, no cost. Today, my expert is Ella Glasgow of Beyond Virtual Events. And Ella, she's so exciting. I've been trying to get her onto the show for quite some time. She's also a singer and performer. And so we theater stories, she and I, but she's also does virtual events for companies where if you have a presentation to give, or you've got a training class or something like that, she and her team will facilitate it, make it fun, make it memorable, all the things that you really want to do, whereas you don't have to spend the time doing that. You can focus on the things that you're really good at and have her help you. Ella's official bio is Ella Glasgow is an award-winning vocalist, a 2-time best-selling author. She's the mommy to a precocious 6-year-old and the leader at the helm of Beyond Virtual Events. She incorporates her 20 plus years on the professional stage, using her diverse skill set to help her clients create impactful virtual and hybrid events that wow their communities, increase connections and commitment to their cause, without pulling their hair out, trying to deal with the tech, the logistics, and the delivery of their events. Ella Glasgow is such a delight. I know that you'll have fun with this interview. Here comes Ella Glasgow. Ella Glasgow, my friend, I am so happy to have you as a guest on Speakers Who Get Results. Welcome.
Hello. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, good. Well, we've been back and forth saying, so when are we going to do this? How are we going to get this? What do we talk about? And we found something. Yay.
Finally.
So before I get into this large list of questions I have for you, let me ask you about your dream interview. If you could, actually for you would be share the stage. If you could be on stage interviewing somebody who's no longer with us, who would it be? What would you ask them? And who should be listening?
I would want to interview Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella Fitzgerald. Okay.
It's obvious and not obvious at the same time, because Ella Fitzgerald has been a constant in my life. My name is Ella, so there's that. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about that is that I, at one point, tried to change my name because I was really tired of being compared to Ella Fitzgerald. And I didn't necessarily want to sing jazz. And I finally gave in, and she made me write a whole show called Ella Sings Ella. And so there you go.
The spirit of Ella Fitzgerald made you do that, right?
Made me, like
okay.
set me down, made me do it. Accept my fate.
Okay, cool. Great. We're gonna you'll have to send me the link to that because we can, because I'll put that in the show notes if there are any recordings of it.
There are recordings of clips of it.
Clips. Yeah, that's not the whole thing. Clips. I get it. Yes. It's your intellectual property. You're not going to give it away. Cool. And what would you ask her?
Well, I'd ask her a lot of things, but I would love to get inside her mind of how she pulled that music into her. You know, when I was researching the music that she did, she has at least 20 recordings, different recordings of the same song that are all different. How? How did you have all of these ideas? Like, where did that even start?
Yeah.
For the same song.
Yeah. Okay. And who should be listening?
Who should be listening to Ella Fitzgerald?
To your interview.
To my interview?
Who are you going to
Everyone.
invite to this event? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm inviting everyone, creatives especially, right? Because we're always looking for that next muse for ourselves, you know, being able to hear those that have gone before us and see how they processed the world around them, the information that they had at the time, and then took that and utilized it, I think is always interesting. And I've always studied people that I admire, whether it be through video or listening to what it is that they do.
Well, that should be a fun one. And maybe the two of you sing a little something and, do a little improv around it. Wouldn't that be fun?
Cool. That'd be
That
super
would be
cool.
totally cool. So Ella Glasgow, Ella G, you are a performer, a creative, but you also have a company called Beyond Virtual Events.
Yes.
And the reason I asked you today, first of all, me with my 30 years in opera, I love talking to singers and did a whole podcast around it about the relationship between business and art. And so I want to ask you a little bit about the relationship between business and art. Art is a business, right?
Yep.
Yep. And then in Beyond Virtual Events, what do you do for people who are in corporate life? Whether they're presenting themselves or whether they're putting an event together. Let me ask you about people doing a presentation. So you've got somebody, you're say a senior director and you're doing an important presentation about what your team is doing. What are the biggest mistakes that presenters make?
Oh God.
Well, let's say just three.
Just
the three.
This list is long.
Okay. No, we don't want to overwhelm people.
I'm kidding. Okay, so the biggest mistakes that I see with presenters when it comes to virtual presentations is that they forget that there are people watching.
Okay.
It's almost the same thing that I say to people that are even on the in-person stage. We can see you. You know, there are those people that get onto the stage and they forget that there is an on, and they do weird things with their hands and their faces and forget that we can still see you just because you're not speaking and it's not your turn. If you're on the stage, we can see you.
Yes. Yeah.
So when it comes to virtual presentation, when I say that I think that some speakers forget that people can see them, there is, depending on the type of virtual presentation that you're doing, meaning the platform that you're on, more often than not, people are not necessarily doing presentations on Zoom. A lot of people are doing presentations where the environment really is kind of them unto themselves. I've been a part of those events that were not on Zoom, and the audience, I couldn't physically see them. So it's really easy to forget that people are there. And the thing that has to be remembered is that whether or not people are there at that moment in time, you are speaking to people if there is a replay. And you have to speak to that eye of the camera as though someone is looking back at you. And that takes practice. That takes remembering who you're talking to and making it so that you're talking to one person, not all y'all, not
Yes.
everyone.
Right.
One person. Because more likely than not, they're the people that are watching you, whether it be live or in the replay, they're probably sitting by themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So that's one mistake, is forgetting that there's an audience.
Yeah.
And actually, I saw once live a presenter. There was a woman who was at the front of the stage at the podium, and then there was a panel behind her, because after she did her speech, then she was going to walk over and join the panel. And one of the men spent the entire time fussing with his cuff, and he had a dark suit and a white shirt. So the white shirt kept coming out, crossing and recrossing his legs, coughing, playing with his notes. You couldn't watch her. She was trying her best. She wasn't terribly good, frankly. And the thing that really annoyed me was that the moderator didn't stop him.
Yeah.
The moderator should have stopped him, but basically he spent the entire time stealing the focus.
Right.
I sort of wondered what the speaker had done to him, that he was taking revenge that way, unless he was just being a horrible person.
I think the unfortunate thing is it goes back to what I said. People don't realize that we can see them. If you are not, I would love to say that it's just professionals. And when I say professionals, I'm talking about professional performers that have this awareness of the people around them on stage. But I've seen even professional performers make these basic mistakes, because these really are basic mistakes. And the thing is that all we're asking is for you to be aware that you are not alone.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and also it's all about communication. It's all about, how do you reach people? You and I have both spent decades doing this. I have a few more decades than you have, but how do you reach people? Communication is the heart of how society works, how we deal with other human beings. So remember that you're not alone. Really, to communicate
in the best way. In the best way, remembering that you're not alone, and understanding that, if you are the one being the featured speaker, that intention is everything. And as easy as it is to kind of gloss over that experience that you're having of speaking into that camera in a room all alone, it will take you some time to get used to that feeling of bringing that intention of the person that you're talking to. You really have to take a moment to visualize who it is you're actually talking to. And some people visualize better than others. Am I saying that you have to have a complete movie sequence in your head? No, but at least have an idea. I'm speaking to Jane in human resources, who is just really frustrated with life right now, and the systems and processes that they have going on are just bogging everything down. And all she wants from me is to have her understand how she can use what she has to reach the employees that she's trying to reach. That's where she's trying to go. That's my scene. That is my story, and go. Speaking directly to that.
I love it. So that's one mistake. Let's talk about, give me two more.
So with virtual presenters, the world of virtual is a wild west. And everyone has
that means
There are no rules.
There are no rules. Okay.
There are rules, but because it's such a new, I say such a new. One of my mentors is John Chin, and he has been pushing for virtual events for the past 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
35 years he's been on this train.
Yeah.
So that's why I say new in
Quote unquote.
in
Yes.
quotes. So the rules are still being laid out, and everyone is doing the best that they can
Mm-hmm.
and doing things that work for them. And this is a conversation that John and I had just last week about our styles. He and I have very different styles of presenting,
Mm-hmm.
and we both excel at the styles that we have. And we're speaking of another presenter that also has a completely different style to the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to take that into consideration, and in taking your style into consideration, also understand the audience that you're speaking to, or the audience that you desire to speak to.
Rule number one, make it
Rule
about the
number one.
audience. Know your audience and then make it about them. Absolutely.
Right? And one of the ways that you can really help with your audience is what it is that you're putting onto the screen. Either what you're
Mm-hmm.
putting onto the screen or how you're putting it onto the screen. And the biggest faux pas that I
Okay.
see in virtual and in-person events is what is going onto that slide.
Yes.
If you must have a slide. I don't feel you must have slides, but anyway, if you feel you must have a slide, that's another story for another day. Please do not make it a book, because if it's a book, why am I here listening to you? I could have just read it.
Right. No charts, please. Oh, if you have a chart, pull out the key things so that it's
Yes.
large enough to read.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
a lot of times people are, I mean, we're sitting here on our computers right now, and yes, some people have the luxury of watching you whilst they're sitting at their home, but oftentimes people are watching on a teeny tiny screen on their phone.
On their phone. Yep.
And if you have 6-point font and 50,000 words on one
Yeah.
page, why?
Well, and the other thing is that in this digital world, it's so easy to shrink the picture down, say on a laptop, shrink the picture down to the corner of your screen and go off and answer your emails. Or if it's not interesting, people will just navigate away.
Yeah.
So you have to be interesting.
You have,
which is a lot of pressure.
Interesting. You have to be
and you have to be
interesting.
clear.
Right. Interesting, clear, and purposeful. Because interesting, just because even these things that we're talking about right now, everything is within context of what it is that you are doing, what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, the ultimate goal that you're trying to get to and your audience is trying to get to. If the things that you're putting into your talk, into your presentation, into your slides, whatever it is that you put onto the screen, if those things don't lead to the end goal for yourself and for your audience, it's time to take it out.
I start with the end and work backwards.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
I do. And I feel like that's probably a director performer thing.
Okay.
To start with the end of the show. Everything is a show to me.
I know the feeling, yes.
To start with the end of the show in mind and really building towards that end. And I feel like sometimes when I'm putting things together, I'm thinking about a client right now who's not necessarily a virtual event client, but a show that we're creating for them. And I'm looking at the end, but I'm also looking at the middle and the beginning. I'm doing it all of it at the same time. But at the end of the day, the overall goal is this. And if everything that I'm putting in the beginning, middle, and end don't lead to that, then it goes out. And in fact, it's what I told her today. There was one thing that she asked me before we had our first interview today for her show creation. And she had told me, she was like, oh, I wish that I have, I've seen you do this, and I hope that you can do this particular thing in the show that you're creating for me. And once we got through the interview process and I kind of let her know how I'm putting this together. I said, do you understand now why I told you that that may or may not work? And she said, oh my gosh, now that I see everything that you're doing, like, okay, if it
Uh-huh.
doesn't make it as much as I want it, if it doesn't make it, I totally get
Yes,
it.
right, exactly. And that's the other thing I find with my clients often is that they're saying, yes, but this detail is so important. Yet if you're doing a presentation, you have to figure out what are the key things they need to learn. And if they want
Mhm.
more information, you can follow up with more information.
Yes, this is not your opportunity to word vomit every single thing that you've ever learned in your entire life
Yes.
on in one 30 to 60-minute presentation, because the fact of the matter is they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
They're not going to get it. And while I would love to believe that I am the only person that you are listening to right now,
Mm-hmm.
that there's nobody else that you're going to listen to the entire day, just going to take everything in that I'm saying, and then you're going to marinate on it for the rest of the day. That is
Mm-hmm.
not the case. That is not the
Mm-hmm.
case. And when you are the virtual presenter at an event, that is most certainly not the case. And there are
Yep.
going to be several other speakers before you and after you. And if you word vomit everything on them and don't nail it down to 3
Mm-hmm.
points,
Yep.
then you will be forgotten.
So let's pursue this a little bit. So assume that you are doing a presentation, whether it's within your organization. We'll focus on the important presentations. This all applies to the regular meetings that you're in. But if you're going to take the time to work on a presentation, choose an important one. You're talking about this show that you are presenting. Yeah, I am assuming that it's actually a presentation for somebody, a business presentation. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about how you construct that, how you help people do this? So here's the other thing, wonderful listeners. If you have a full-time job and you're already working overtime and you're in meetings all day, every day, this is what Ella does, is Ella and her company Beyond Virtual Events, they help you, they take that piece of it away from you and help you create something awesome. So tell me how you approach it and why does it matter? Why
Yeah.
is it
So,
worth outsourcing this to somebody, to an expert?
well, one of the biggest reasons is the one that you said. This is not production, virtual event production is not everybody's area of expertise.
Okay.
And if you are not that person at your
Mm-hmm.
company, they're not paying you to produce virtual events, learn all the platforms, learn all the tips and tricks and
Mm-hmm.
best practices and all the things. If that is not the job that they are paying you for, that means that on their dime, you are working on things that you are not being paid for. And
Ah,
that means you're probably working outside of your regular hours, not being paid
this is not good. Right.
to do the thing. And on top of that, your company is losing out on the skill that they're actually paying you for because you are having to split your attention to do the other thing, which
Mm-hmm.
means if the thing that you're being paid for is the other, whatever it is that you're actually paid to do, the thing that you're not paid to do, produce a virtual event,
Mm-hmm.
is probably going to be on the lackluster side.
Not so
You're
great.
probably not devoting that much time and attention to it. You're just trying to get it done.
Well, this is where I hire experts, are the places that I'm not good at. I had to learn that this was an investment, is when I started thinking about the hours I would spend to create something, and the hours I would spend at my hourly rate, then I've already spent way more time than it would have cost me to hire someone who could just do it, boom, 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 and is way faster than I am.
Exactly. Exactly. This is for any skill, right? And
Mm-hmm.
especially for what it is that we do at Beyond Virtual Events. Somebody has taken the time to learn all the things. for that particular thing that you need done. And unless your hope and desire is to become a virtual event producer, like that is your dream, then probably best to hand it off to somebody else, because you are best utilized doing the thing that you have the skill to do already and are already being paid to do. It's not taking away from your ability to learn. It's not taking away from the ability of you being an awesome person. I don't want to take any of that away from you. But I also want to make sure that you understand there's a better use of your time, which doesn't negate the use of having someone like us come in to produce the event for you. In fact, it makes it more valuable because you could be doing the things that you need to do.
This is what you need to say when you're applying for the money to hire Ella, right? Or me. Yes. Give us an example. Maybe like, say, a client who had a terrible event and came to you and you helped make the next one better. Yeah. Or a terrible event you've seen. We've all seen those.
So I'm going to tell you the first client that comes to mind. I'm actually going to tell you of her first experience with us of an event that they had that was really great in person. And then when it came time to take it virtual, the reason why she came to us.
Okay.
This particular person, and it really goes in line with what you and I were just talking about. She was the director of her organization, and they put on an event every year in person, and it was a women's event, and a business women's event, and they were expecting it to be amazing. They had all these fun things. They wore tutus. Like there was this tutu thing that happened every year.
Ballet tutus. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Ballet tutus. And it was a funny thing that was like her shtick for hosting the event. Right. And all of these expectations that they had for when they took it virtual. And the one thing that she said to me, she said, Ella, I could probably figure all this out. Cause like, event planning is what I do. I could figure it out. But the bottom line is I don't have the desire or the time.
Okay. All right.
To figure this out. And so with that being said, we took that 3-day conference that they had all of those expectations, all of those things. And I could tell you to this day, their group, the Facebook group that we created for them is still open and still being in use. This is almost 3 years later.
Wow, that's great.
They're still using that Facebook group because I can still see in there. And we they still talk about our DJ. We have a live DJ that we bring in for many of our events. And he's kind of my sidekick. I'm emceeing the virtual for our clients. And he has a tutu that he wears specifically for that event.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which they completely were not expecting it because it's virtual. They didn't know what would happen. And we made sure that it happened the next year when we did the event for them the next year. Because they were like, first of all, they said, are they coming back?
Yeah. Bring him back.
Ella and Dave be back? And will there be a tutu? And yes, there was a tutu.
Cool. Wonderful. So if you are, say you're someone who's has suddenly been handed an event and you can't actually hire beyond virtual events, but you have to produce something for your company. And, this is the era of layoffs and so forth, although there are lots of people who are still hiring. So there's all sorts of talks about layoffs.
Hiring now. There's quiet hiring now.
There's lots of quiet hiring. It's the media that's talking about layoffs because it makes it gets more people to tune in and subscribe. But say that your company, senior management, believes what they're hearing on the media, that there's no money, and they think that they have no money. So they just say, okay, Puri, you're going to run the event all by yourself, no staff, no help, no nothing. What advice could you give somebody in that situation?
The advice that I would give to someone is exactly what we told a particular client and created for a client that was in that very situation. We'd done a press conference for them. And then their very next event was a 3-day training conference. This was a group of lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
and their budget had run out. And the event planner told me, she said, Ella, they have told me that I don't have the budget to have you all produce our 3-day event. And I'm literally pulling my hair out right now. I have no clue how I'm going to make this happen, especially for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? What if I train you? And
Ah,
she said, I would love you forever. And
okay.
so, and so that very weekend, I said, give me the weekend. And next week on Tuesday, I'm going to train you for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so that very training that I did for her, we recorded, and that's now what we have for our people who are in that situation, like Puri, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the budget to hire an entire BVE team. We don't even have the budget to just have Ella come
Mm-hmm.
in and be basic.
Mm-hmm.
We our budget is $1,000 and that's all we've got.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have that particular training that I created for that particular client that she told me after we did it. She said, everybody needs this.
Great.
It saved our event to know what to do.
And I am guessing that the purchase of a training video comes out of a different part of the budget. So somewhere along, someone's going to be able to authorize that $1,000 from some item in the budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe a few fewer, maybe not quite so much food in the cafeteria, or maybe you're not serving beer, and something like that.
Right.
That's great. I hope you'll be sending us a link to how to find that and how to learn that. Why does it matter to practice?
I love that you're asking me these questions because I know that you know the answers, and because we've had these conversations.
Well, I'm just going to pause by saying I was just talking to a client who just didn't get a chance. Who is constantly throwing her presentations together at the last minute because there are so many fires to put out, and she tries to put out the fires. She tries to deal with what she's being asked, and then she finds herself an hour before the event, she's still creating slides. The company does that.
Yeah. So first of all, going back to something that I kind of breezed over, but it's so important in this situation that you're talking about right now. Let go of the slides.
Okay.
That will eliminate some stress. Why? Because I will tell speakers, if your content, if what it is you're talking about is leaning on slides, it's not strong enough.
Okay.
If it can't be said without that slide, and I'm here for, equal opportunity learning and understanding and having multiple ways for people to take in the information. But knowing what we said before, that most people are not creating slides that are impactful. They're just creating slides that are packed full.
Yeah. Very good. Yes.
Of too much information. So first of all, when it comes to practicing, I would say let go of the slides. It's important to practice because of reasons that people have said they feel is the reason to not practice. I've seen this said many times. And Elizabeth, you may, as I start to say it, I think you're going to realize what I'm talking about. People will say, I don't want to practice because it's going to make me sound like a robot.
Yes.
Right? But you and I both know that practicing in the right way is what makes you not sound like a robot. I read something, I don't remember where I saw it, but they were talking about Madonna and her ability to be so fluent and so easy on stage. And they talked about the fact that Madonna, at how old is Madonna now and how many years has she been doing it, that she still practices her craft daily because that allows her to get onto the stage and have all of that be muscle memory so that she can be in the moment with her audience.
Yes. I think of that as the craft that underlies art. And speaking is an art. So when you have practiced the craft, you don't have to think about what are you going to do with your hands. And actually, I know so many people who forget that speaking is a physical act. You actually have to train your lips and tongue and your breath to say things, especially if you have complicated phrases. Or
Yeah.
if you're speaking in a language that's not your first language or not the
Right.
first language for your listeners.
Exactly. And you have to train your body because
Mm-hmm.
you've watched people on the stage that feel quite robotic in their movement.
Mm-hmm.
You can see and you can feel the energy from those people that are saying something and making a move with that, whatever those words are, because they were either told by somebody you should move now, or you should do your hand like this, or you should nod your head. They're
Mm-hmm.
doing it because they were told to do so, not because it was a natural
Mm-hmm.
response, I should say, a natural response to the words that they were saying or the words that were being spoken to them.
Yes. Right.
All of that has to be practiced. As many times as you've watched your most favorite speaker, one speaker that I absolutely love watching and listening to is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh,
Neil
yes, he
deGrasse
is
Tyson.
awesome.
I just listened to an interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he got to the point where he could be so fluent. I mean, he talks about the most technical things. I mean, he's talking about the universe, for goodness sake.
Yes,
Okay,
right. Yes.
the most dense topic of all
Physics and
time.
astronomics
Right?
and all that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Which could be really unreachable. And there are many scientists who are unreachable when they talk about those
Mm-hmm.
things. He took the time to study his favorite speakers and watching what they were doing on media.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched not science speakers, because there weren't a whole lot of science speakers. He was watching how they were making sound bites. And so he watched one of his first interviews back and noticed how it was not the greatest. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, how can I make what I'm talking about into a sound bite? And he practices it.
Yes.
He
Yes.
practices sound bites.
Yes. Which means that you have to allocate the time. Well, here's another thing that I talk about a lot, and I would love to have your thoughts on this, is as you are always making an impression, you're probably not going to lose your job if you do a boring, confusing presentation. But people will remember. And if you do a really exciting presentation, and let me point out that if you're not using slides, you are the visual element.
Exactly.
So if you're talking like this and you're reading your script and not looking, people will remember that and then they make value judgments about you.
They make value judgments about you and the company that you work for.
That's true.
Because at
Yes.
the end of the day, as the presenter for that particular organization, you may be the first point of contact that that audience has ever seen. You may be the only contact,
Mm-hmm.
physical contact beyond the website that that person has ever seen. And if you are going in front of that audience, possibly being the first physical person, human, that they have
Mm-hmm.
ever seen, and the first thing that they get from you is boring and dull, you have ruined
That's right.
your company's expectation for that particular audience who could have been a potential client and may be turned off by your presentation style.
That is a good thing to end on. Ella, there's so much fun to talk to you about all of this. Um, you know, it's so nice to have someone who's been there and been in this world and is still in this world. And so Ella is a fabulous performer. So when you listen to this, if you're interested, go check her out because she's a great singer and really lots of fun. Thank you so much for all of this fabulous advice. Ella, welcome. Thank you for having been a guest on Speakers Who Get Results.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that I got to be here.
So, dear listeners, if you enjoyed this, please Tell your friends, follow us, and leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts. That's the one that matters. That's how more people find us. Tell your friends, subscribe, find us on YouTube, all of this. And I will have all sorts of information about Ella, Glasgow, and Beyond Virtual Events in the show notes for this episode. This has been Speakers Who Get Results. I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.